What's up everyone, my name's Dylan Walker with Yahoo Esports. I want to talk to you about what's going on at the ESL One Cologne major in Germany. Now essentially, the French teams have been knocked out, Astralis is doing really well with 2 subs, and the CIS teams are dominating. Envious and G2 are gone from the tournament. Envious lost a game to Mousesports, and then they also lost in upset fashion to Team Liquid, who is doing very well with JDM. Both French teams will have to play through the qualifiers if they want to compete at the next major. Next up, we have the Danish teams. One thing to note is that Dupree is out for Astralis. He had a medical emergency and will not be playing for the rest of the major. They will be using Zonic, their coach, instead. Zonic played for Astralis during E-League, where they actually topped their group, so not all is lost. Astralis is also playing with Glaive instead of Kirby. Can't use Kirby because he played with Dig during the regional qualifier and is ineligible to play at this major. Astralis has made top 8 now and will be returning at the next major. Even with these 2 subs, very strong team. Last but not least, Flipside Tactics in a total shocker beat Ninjas in Pajamas in 3 maps today. There are 3 CIS teams in the playoff bracket, 15 players from the CIS region. No one from that region has ever won a major in the past, and it's safe to say this is the best chance they're going to get. The favorites are still in, Fnatic, SK Gaming, Na'Vi. This is still anyone's ballgame. Keep it tuned to Yahoo Esports. We'll have the streams on the website. Thanks for watching.